So today, I'm going to talk to you about a summary of all the sightings that we have had, the high-level stats, and then some of the key highlight sightings from whale track this year, and then share some of the HWDT teams highlights of the year as well. Then I've got a wee quiz, which I'd love for everyone to join in with. And then after that, I'll just open the floor and we can have a wee chat about our favourite sightings and what we'd like to see next year, just sort of have a reflection on this year so far. So to start off with, I want to do a massive thank you to every single person who sends in sightings through Whale Track. So this year we have grown to over 7,000 registered users, which is absolutely phenomenal considering when Whale Track first launched in 2017, their goal was 20 users. So having 7,000 people registered is absolutely incredible. We also reached an absolutely staggering 8 million rows of data this year through Whale Track. So the data that we collect, it's all the sightings data, it's all the environmental data, it's all the GPS location data. So all of that data goes in, and in total that has equated to 8 million rows, which is absolutely insane. So thank you so much for all the reports and surveys that you send in to us. Now, I do just want to start off with this. So this summer has actually been dubbed a record breaker for how wet it was, which we're all probably very aware of. So I do just want to say how amazing it has been to see so many people out there still watching, still doing their surveys through what has been quite a challenging year. So hats off to everyone that has coped with the weather that we have had this year and still been able to see some absolutely amazing sightings of these animals. So yeah, you're probably all aware of the news, but I just thought I'd put on the maps and the wee little news quote just to let you guys know it's not been an easy year weather-wise. So let's look at some stats. Now, I love a map, so we've included maps on here again. Hopefully it gives you a good visual. But looking at the stats, before we go into the actual sightings, this year we welcomed 1,200 new users to our Whale Track community and almost 990 active reporters this year, which is fantastic. And in total, we had over 9,600 sighting reports that would have been from casual, excursion and land-based surveys of over 61,000 animals. So absolutely incredible. Now, although these stats, the percentages next to them, although that shows that these stats are down from last year, considering the conditions we've been having to deal with, that is still an absolutely amazing achievement. So I do just want to put that out there. Then the map, I just want to quickly explain the map because there's more of them on the next slide. The map pulls together all of those sighting reports that we've had, and it pulls together all the ones from excursions in blue, land-based watches in kind of yellow, and then the casual sightings in orange. And you can really see there that there's a really good spread across Scotland, and it even filters down into England and Northern Ireland as well, of where these reports are coming from. So it's really good to see so many people across Scotland are using Whale Track to record their sightings and do surveys. And then when we break this down even further, I am actually taken aback by the amazing increase in some of our effort-based watches this year. So although casual reports are down, so you can see that they're down by 26%, this could be due to the phenomenal increase in the number of effort-based surveys. So we compared how many we had last year to how many this year, and land-based surveys have increased by 98%, which is amazing. Absolutely amazing. And you can also see on the map to your right, so all of the yellows, we compared this map to last year's map, and there are more areas around Scotland that people are doing watches from as well. So that's fantastic to see that more people are doing watches in different areas of Scotland. Then we have a look at our excursions, and they have increased by 37%, which is, again, So amazing. So we've been really trying to encourage people to do effort-based watches and provide that additional information that we can use to analyze. And the fact that they've increased so much this year, we are so truly thankful to everyone. So yeah, thank you so much for putting all of that effort in. And I do want to put a wee special shout out actually for excursions to boat operators, because one of the things that we did at the start of the year was we held a whale track boat operator event, and we invited boat operators that currently use whale track as casual sighting reporters and kind of upskilled them, offered training and networking opportunity for all of them to kind of see why we're encouraging excursion. And since that event, we've doubled the number of boat operators that are doing excursions. So I do think that that 37% increase has probably got something to do with them as well. So I do want to put a wee little shout out to boat operators. They do provide a lot of data for us. Then finally on this slide, we've got photographs. Now that is down from last year, only by 29%. Now, again, that could be very much due to the conditions that people have been watching in. But if anyone does have photographs from reports that they have submitted through WhaleTrack that they're yet to submit, please do go onto your account and upload them through the photo portal, or you can email them to us if you would prefer. So yeah, photos are really important for us to be able to verify these sightings, but also to use to determine what behaviors are being sort of seen in different areas, but also for photo ID purposes. So let's look at species levels now. So throughout the year, every quarter, I send out a sighting summary. So in the form of a blog, which also goes through our newsletter, which will be coming out tomorrow. The blog for this quarter has just come out today. And in these blogs, I do a top 3 sighted species for that quarter. And this year followed a very similar pattern to last year. So it probably won't surprise many of you who've read the blogs that our final end of year podium is the same as 2023. So the top 3 were harbour porpoises, common dolphins, and minke whales, with bottlenose dolphins coming in a close 4th place. Now, when you look at this list and the number of sightings of the different species, you may see or recognize that some of the species we've had fewer sightings of this year, while others have actually increased. So we've had a total of 17 different species reported, and that includes some of our rarer species such as sunfish, northern bottlenose whales, and we even had reports of Sowersby beaked whales as well, which is amazing. I will tell you a bit more about that sighting later, which maybe doesn't make it as amazing, but it's still a really interesting report. And the fact that we're getting some of these more unusual sightings and maybe seeing a fluctuation between the number of sightings for specific species really does showcase the importance of long-term monitoring to enable us to really track trends and any changes or whether things are just anomalies. So that is what we're all about, collecting that long-term database. So now let's have a look at the breakdown by month. And I really like having a look at these because it's really interesting to see how the sightings change throughout the year. So I've included December 2023 in this. All the other stats were just between January and the end of November, because that's when I do these talks. But I like to have December included somewhere. So I do include it for the breakdown of the month by month, because it's good to be able to see how different winter is to the rest of the season, the rest of the year. So I'll show these ones as well. The smaller graphs are from last year. Oh, let me just let somebody in. There we go. The smaller graphs are from last year, just so you can just about make out some comparisons there. But similarly to last year, there was an increase in the sightings and animals as we hit April, with, as we all know, the summer months being our busiest for sightings because there's lots more eyes on the sea. But also we're seeing those migratory animals coming back into our waters. But interestingly, unlike last year, this year, June had a wee dip in sightings, while July had the most number of sightings. And if you compare that to last year, August was our busiest month, which I think is normally the case. So it's quite interesting that actually July saw the most sightings and then it dipped. And, you know, that might correlate with when the weather fluctuated this year. I'm not sure, but it's just interesting to see that difference. But what I really like to see is that once again, we are seeing more reports coming in the tail end of the season, which is really great to see. So October and November, we had reporters conducting more than double the amount of effort-based surveys and reporting just under double the number of casual sightings than this time last year. Now, the reason I'm excited by that is, as you can see from these graphs, we get less sightings in the tail end of the season and throughout winter. Understandably, the weather is really poor usually throughout the winter. Not as many eyes on the sea. There's not as many boat operators out doing wildlife watches. But also, you know, there's not as many animals because we do have our migratory species kind of leaving our waters. But it's still really important for us to do those surveys, do that effort based, so we can really see the difference in presence and absence of animals in our waters year round. So last year we launched the Embrace Your Whale Side challenge, and this year we are doing the same. So we are doing it again this year to try and encourage as many people as possible to do a short survey, 30-minute watch, either from land or whenever you're on a ferry. Just put the survey effort in, let us know what you've seen, and really try and help us build up those stats for the winter months so that we can get a holistic view of the year. So last year, the number of land-based watches very much increased over winter. So that's fantastic. So hopefully we can increase it even more this year. So that's the statistics side of things. Now I have had the very challenging task of narrowing down to just a few highlight sightings. Bearing in mind we've had over 9,000 this year, so it's been very hard to narrow it down. I did narrow it down to 10, and I think I've now got it up to 12. So I've managed to highlight 12 sightings from the year from reporters across Scotland. So I'm going to share some of those, and hopefully they're all kind of spread out across Scotland as well. So I'm going to share some of those with you now. So our first exciting sighting of the year came from Tanya Gray in Shetland. She captured this photograph of a rare visitor, a beluga in the waters around Shetland, which was really exciting. And I think it was a bit more exciting for us as verifiers. So we have a team of verification volunteers who just sort of go through and check all the sighting reports are accurate. And it was really exciting because last year we received a report of a potential beluga, and we got in touch with the reporter. We had a look at all the photographs because the photograph looked like a beluga, and it actually turned out to be Risso's dolphins, and it was just the way the photo was taken that made it look like a beluga. So that was a really exciting kind of thing to investigate last year. So it's really nice to see an actual beluga be reported through Whale Track, and with a fantastic photograph as well. Now, as always, I can't not include the boys, John Coe and Aquarius. So because everyone is going to be expecting me to talk about them, I'm going to get them out of the way early and talk about one of the highlight sightings for them this year. We had multiple highlight sightings for John Coe and Aquarius this year. This was the second of those highlight sightings. So this was in July, and they were first reported as being seen in the Firth of Lorne, so near Oban. And they subsequently got spotted heading into the Sound of Mull. And then as people started watching them, they ended up traveling all the way from the Firth of Lorne, all the way up the Sound of Mull to the Ardnamurchan Point. And people on both sides of the water got out, watched these amazing two bulls head up the Sound and sent in their sightings to us. And we've got a really good timeline of their movements up the Sound on that day, which is absolutely fantastic to see. And so many people got out and were able to see these boys. So yeah, I think they probably made a lot of people's year this year. Now, hopefully this isn't too loud for you. It's going to play a video. I'm going to talk about the boys again on this slide. So let me just make that a bit quieter so you can actually hear me talk if I can. There we go. So sticking with the boys, this was a sighting taken in March, So this was a video. There we go. This was a video recorded by Kenny and Farley, who are local fishermen to Mull. And they were watching on John Cone Aquarius and they were hunting a porpoise. And they then saw evidence of the catch float past their boat and they managed to pick it up. And that is a dorsal fin of a porpoise that John Cone Aquarius ate during that sighting. So that was just amazing when we heard that that had happened. And this led into another sighting that took place that I'll tell you about later. But yeah, absolutely amazing. So, from the biggest dolphin species to one of the biggest whale species, the guests and crew aboard Hebrides cruises were treated to an incredible sight of what appears to be a mother and calf fin whale, which is just gorgeous to see. So Lindsay from Hebrides Cruises actually sent this sighting in to me with the photograph, and I've just got a wee little bit about what she said about the day here. So she said that the mum and the calf stayed in the area around the vessel for almost half an hour before moving on. But the whole day was incredible as they had two other fin whales, four humpbacks, one which associated with their boat while they were stationary, one that was lunge feeding, and they were surrounded by common dolphins for most of the day. So an absolutely phenomenal day, all round. And then to top it off, this amazing photograph as well. So we had to include that report from Lindsay from Hebrides Cruises. So now on to one of our lesser reported species. We have got the sunfish. We don't get many reports of them in a year. So as you can see, we've had 5 sightings of them this year. But when we do get reports, especially when we get photographs, we do get very excited because they're such an unusual looking fish that I just love seeing all the different pictures people manage to get of them. So the set of 3 pictures there is from Gordy. He's actually one of our verification volunteers as well. So he spotted this sunfish between Barra and Cole while out with Gemini Explorer. And then the picture to the side is from Andrew, who reported this from his fishing boat just north of Skye. So got a very good picture of it just kind of floating along the top of the water there. So we like to include some of our more commonly seen species. You can't forget the ones that we see, regularly. We have to appreciate them as well. So we have a fantastic team of verification volunteers who help just go through and make sure all of our reports are as accurate as possible. And they might get in touch with you if they need a bit more details. But one of our volunteers, Andrea, loved this photograph that was submitted by Pippa of common dolphins breaching and bow riding alongside their boat. And it's just a really, really good photograph to show just the speed of these animals. This sort of picture taken as they're in motion going alongside that boat is amazing. And just also the distance from the water that they can get when they're breaching. Now, I'm going to probably bring us down a wee bit because during these talks, this is a celebration of sightings, and this isn't necessarily something to celebrate, but I do think it's important to reflect on reports and sightings that maybe don't always end on a positive side. And it's just a good way to refresh our knowledge of who we should call if we find an animal in distress. So, unfortunately, this year, we had another mass stranding of pilot whales. This time it was in Orkney. For those who may not be aware, last year there was a mass stranding of pilot whales, 55 of them on Lewis. So it was really sad to see a similar situation play out so soon after that had taken place. So BDMLR medics arrived on the scene and they found that 12 of them were still alive. But unfortunately, after health assessments and just making sure whether these animals would survive if they refloated them, it was actually decided that for the benefit of the animals, it was best to euthanize them. So BDMLR did their job. And then SMAS came in alongside their colleagues from CSIP who worked down in England, and they took as many samples as possible to try and determine the circumstances on the stranding. Now, as far as I know, someone on here might know otherwise, but as far as I know, no results have been shared yet for what they think the reason is for that stranding. But I'm sure at some point they'll put a report out. Now, one that ended on a slightly more positive note. In November, there was a humpback whale that was seen entangled in krill lines in the Clyde. And the BDMLR have a large whale disentanglement team who are absolutely phenomenal. They are all over the country and they immobilize as soon as they get a report of an entangled whale. So they responded, got to site, assessed the situation, determined the best course of action, and thankfully they were able to cut this whale free, which is fantastic. And people in the area did report humpback whales. There was multiple humpback whales in the area, so we can't be sure if it was the exact same whale, but they saw humpback whales in the area swimming around freely after this incident. So hopefully this whale has survived and it's fine, and it will just have these scars to remember that unfortunate incident by. Now, it's nice to highlight that during both of these situations, so many people got involved, and this is the bit that we can celebrate. So volunteers, locals, professionals, boat operators, everyone gets involved when this happens. Everyone cares. So the fact that so many people want to help is just fantastic. And I just want to put a big thanks out to all of the BDMLR medics, the large entanglement team, SMAS, all their volunteers for responding so quickly and efficiently during these situations. So that is something to celebrate, that we have these people who can respond. So kind of keeping with the theme, unfortunately, of strandings and talking about the Sowersby that I mentioned earlier, Steve Trueluck was doing a watch from land off Fraserburgh back in May, and he was watching this whale that he was sure was not a minke whale. So he was watching the behavior, the surfacing patterns, the color, the shape of this animal, and he determined it. He figured it was a beaked whale of some description, and he thought possibly a Sowersby. Now, Sowersby beaked whales are deep diving whales. They make regular dives lasting up to 20 minutes, reaching depths of over 1,500 meters. They're hunting for things like squid, for deep sea fish. And the whale that he was watching, he said, was drifting along the tide line from the Southern Trench, which is about 200 meters deep, and was last seen heading back in that direction. Now, the Southern Trench is along like the Moray coast. Now, the photograph that he submitted, unfortunately, was inconclusive to get a positive ID of the species, so we don't know for sure whether that's what he was watching. However, a couple of days later, BDMLR medics were called to a Sowersby beaked whale that had stranded at Fort William in Inverness. Now, unfortunately, this whale, because of its health, it was euthanized on welfare grounds. But the fact that that report came in and there was a stranded Sowersby very shortly afterwards does make it possible that what Steve was watching was a Sowersby. And it's just a really good example that, you know, you might be used to watching specific whales and you might be expecting to see specific animals in areas, but always have that little question mark of, is it something else? And really look closely at the behavior and the colorations to see if maybe it is something that you maybe don't expect. So on the unexpected, in September, Fergus Reid from Turismara sent in a really cool report of a breaching thresher's shark. Now, the shark he described was up to 15 feet long, and he said it breached once. Now, unfortunately, the fact that it only breached once meant that Fergus couldn't get a photograph of it. But for anyone that doesn't know what a thresher's shark looks like, I went online, grabbed a photograph. This is not ours. This does not belong to us. We just took it online to give you an example, but this is something like what Fergus probably would have seen. So a really cool sighting. And we do occasionally get reports of different types of sharks, but it is quite rare. So that was really cool to hear that he'd seen one so close to where I live. So yeah, another unexpected. So on to humpbacks. This year, we actually had the highest number of sighting reports of humpback whales since Whale Track launched in 2017. So this is obviously really, really cool. But we do have to consider why this is. Now, it could be because there are more whales in our waters. That could very much be the case. But we also need to consider reporter bias because we are getting a lot more people watching for these animals, a lot more people knowing to report these animals. So because of that, we can expect to get a lot more sighting reports as well. So we do need a lot more data analysis to determine whether, the population status is going up, if it's stable, and what the abundance of these animals is. But we've pulled a few of the sightings. So when I say I narrowed it down to 12 sightings, there are a few slides with multiple sightings. So I've cheated a wee bit. But Gordon Young had a sighting of a humpback whale that he spotted from a distance. He saw the blow, and this humpback was traveling from the south to the north while they were sailing from the east to the west. And their paths crossed, and this humpback whale swam underneath his yacht, and then it continued further north. Around a similar time, around Skye, oh, sorry, I'm just seeing comments, but I'll read those. I'll read those at the end, or else I'll get really distracted. Around the same time near Skye, Kyle Lifeboat posted a really cool video of multiple humpbacks and common dolphins that they encountered during one of their weekly training exercises. So I would recommend, if you are on Facebook, to have a look at the Kyle Lifeboat Facebook page to see that video because it was really, really cool to watch. Then the second picture here is from Jack Fraser. He took a close-in photo of a humpback sighting. Now, this humpback, he was actually watching bottlenose dolphins at the time. And this humpback, I'm describing it as photobombing. He hasn't described it as that, but I just laugh at the fact that he was watching bottlenose dolphins, and then suddenly this humpback surfaced 50 meters from his boat. Imagine watching already really cool animals, a pod of bottlenose, and then this humpback just surfaces 50 meters from your boat. That's just, oh, so lucky. And then the last picture there is during a wild discovery event. So this year we joined Wild Discovery and the Mammal Society on board Calmac ferries going from Stornoway to Ullapool back in July. And during that time, a humpback whale known as Davies was spotted from the ferry, which is really cool in itself. But what made it even better was two members of our team who had never seen humpback whales before. Morven, our comms manager, and Alison, our director, saw Davies. So their first humpback whale that they'd seen was a known humpback, which is just really, really cool for them. So we're going to come back to the Sound of Mull, and we're going to go to another fin whale. So the Sound of Mull actually created quite a lot of stir this year amongst locals, because in the same week, I'm sure it was the same week, that John Cohen Aquarius was seen traveling up the Sound. A week later, this fin whale was seen traveling up the Sound, which is just phenomenal. So Dan from Wild Discovery was doing a ferry excursion, and he sent the report in, and we were all like, a fin whale in the Sound? But we knew Dan, and we were like, Dan knows his stuff, like, okay. So obviously people went out and watched, and I was actually getting Silurian ready for our teen research trip at the time, and saw these messages coming through being like, there's a fin whale about to literally cross paths with Silurian, and I was like, what? So we took the boat out, and absolutely, fin whale went past us, and the sound of its blow was so loud that colleagues of mine that were watching up at the golf course could hear it so clearly. So yeah, really cool sighting. And then lastly, we had some really good sightings of white-beaked dolphins from across Scotland this year. So one of them is actually quite unusual. So Pam sent in a report of a white-beaked dolphin from a boat trip near Mull in July. And I got in touch and was like, are you sure it was a white-beak? Because, we don't usually see them around Mull. And she sent in this photograph, and I was like, wow, that is a white-beak. And it was just one individual on its own, so hopefully it was okay, but it was bow riding. She was able to watch this animal for 10 minutes as it bow rode the boat. And this was Pam's first sighting of a white-beaked dolphin, so that is really nice for her. And then the next picture there is from Craig Nisbet. Now, he has a very cool job. He works the season on St Kilda, so he gets to see some really, really cool stuff, including lots of white-beaked dolphin sightings. And this one I pulled out because it just shows these dolphins just really playful back in April. And then finally, Liam Pritchard sent in this absolutely gorgeous photograph of white-beaked dolphins. He was watching up to 250 of them in Shetland. Now, alongside that picture, again, if you're on Facebook, Hugh Harrop put a really cool aerial footage video of the white-beaked dolphins on the Shetland Wildlife Facebook page. So if you want to have a look at aerial footage of this sighting, have a look on there. Okay, so I did cheat a wee bit by putting multiple sightings on pages, but there was just so many interesting things happening this year. So before we go on to the quiz, I just wanted to give you highlights from the HWDT team because we are very busy behind the scenes, verifying sightings, doing all sorts of reports. The boat team get to go out and get really nice sightings on Silurian, but we occasionally get to go out and do some whale track surveys as well. So I've just chosen 3 of our highlights for this year. And one of them is John Cohen Aquarius again. So shortly after they were seen chowing down on a porpoise, they got close in to Mull, to the lighthouse, and locals and visitors alike heard about it, so went to Tobermory Lighthouse and spent the morning watching these amazing animals just off the coast. Now, that's special in itself, seeing them like so close to Mull. But what was even more special for the team was our residential volunteers, Kai and Lindsay. That was their very first day starting their job, and they got to see John Cohen Aquarius, which is so amazing, so lucky as well. But even more was Morven, our communication manager. She has lived and worked on Mull for many, many, many years and never seen the boys, and she got to see them. So that was a very special moment, I think, for the HWDT team. Oh, then this one, another lifeboat one. This time we've got the video of. I was taking this video, so I'm a member of the Tobermory lifeboat crew. We were out on our weekly training exercise, just about to head back into Tob when we were escorted by a pod of bottlenose dolphins. So again, I'll mute the video because it's very loud and play this. So this is one member of the crew watching the dolphins, and hopefully you can see them just alongside the boat every so often. It's not playing very well, unfortunately. If you want to see a decent version of that video, just go onto our Facebook page because we posted it a few months back. But that was a really special moment as well for us. And then finally, the last one, again, let me just mute that, it's helicopter sounds. Myself and whale track volunteer Sharon went on board the Northern Lighthouse Board's vessel Pharos. So we are working with the Northern Lighthouse Board to train up all their crews so that when they're out and about and they're coming across these animals, they can report them to us. They're able to fill in these data gaps that, they go to places that a few people might not actually be able to go to. So we were busy watching heliops taking place around Skerryvore Lighthouse, and at the same time doing a watch from land. I say that because we were technically on a boat, but we were stationary. So we did a watch from land. And while watching the helicopters doing their work, we were also watching foraging minke whales. So just phenomenal seeing those 2 things happening at the same time. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that kind of summary of the year. It's quite a lot to sort of jam in. So what I'm going to do is we're going to do a wee quiz. Hopefully you all want to join in. We're going to do a wee quiz, but while we do it, I want you to have a wee think about what your must-see is for 2025. I always like to sort of ask what it is you'd love to see next year. Mine is once again the same thing as it has been for the last 3 years, because even though we had the most sightings of them this year than we have since Whale Track launched, I still have not seen a humpback whale. So that is still my must see. It will happen one day. I'm going to hold out hope. but have a wee think about what yours is, and we'll do the quiz. Um, but yeah, just to let you know, if you're interested in our winter webinars, they will be launching in January. So Wednesday nights in January until March, there'll be a winter webinar, and the program for that will be coming out soon. Not sure if it'll be this side of Christmas or in the new year, but yeah, do keep your eyes peeled for that.